Before we look at the main terms of the Treaty of Versailles, it's important to understand the historical context. First, World War I ended with an armistice on the 11th of November 1918. An armistice is an agreement to stop fighting. However, it was not the same as a peace treaty. It ended the fighting, but the countries involved still needed to agree the official terms of peace. Second, in June 1919, the victorious Allied powers met at the Paris Peace Conference. The main leaders included Britain, France and the USA, known as the Big Three. They had different aims, and the Treaty of Versailles ended up being a compromised peace that no one was incredibly happy with. This takes us to the Treaty of Versailles itself, which officially ended World War I. It was signed with Germany in June 1919 at the Palace of Versailles in France. This video will take you through the key terms of the Treaty of Versailles. A simple way to remember the terms is the acronym GARGLE: Guilt, Arms, Reparations, Germany lost land, League of Nations, Extra. By the end of this video, you should be able to explain what Germany had to accept under the Treaty of Versailles and why many Germans saw the treaty as harsh. The first term was guilt. This refers to Clause 231, also known as the War Guilt Clause. Under this clause, Germany and her allies had to accept responsibility for causing all the loss and damage of the First World War. This was extremely humiliating for Germany. Many Germans believed that they were being unfairly blamed for the whole war, even though other countries had also been involved in the build-up to conflict. The War Guilt Clause was important. Once Germany had accepted guilt, it gave the Allies justification for punishing Germany. The second term was arms. This meant that Germany's armed forces were severely restricted. The aim was to reduce Germany's ability to wage war in the future. Germany's army was limited to 100,000 men, and conscription was not allowed. This meant Germany could not force men to join the army. Germany was also banned from having tanks, armoured vehicles and heavy artillery. It was not allowed to have an air force. The German Navy was also limited. Germany was only allowed 6 battleships and it was not allowed to have submarines. Another key military term was that the Rhineland was demilitarised. This meant that Germany was not allowed to place troops, weapons or fortifications there. The Rhineland was important because it was close to France, so this term was designed to make France feel safer. For Germany, these restrictions were humiliating because they made the country look weak and vulnerable. In addition, it became obvious later in Germany's history that 100,000 soldiers wasn't enough to keep internal order. The third term was reparations. Reparations meant that Germany had to pay money to compensate the Allies for the damage caused by the war. At first, the Treaty of Versailles stated that Germany had to accept liability for reparations, but the exact amount would be decided later by a reparations committee. The final amount was set at £6,600 million, which should also be written as £6.6 billion. Germany was expected to pay this in instalments. This was a huge sum of money. Many Germans believed it was impossible to pay, especially because Germany's economy had already been badly damaged by war. The reparations term became one of the most hated parts of the treaty because it placed a heavy financial burden on Germany. The fourth term was that Germany lost land. This was one of the biggest sections of the Treaty of Versailles because Germany lost territory in Europe and overseas. First, Germany had to return Alsace-Lorraine to France. This was important because Germany had taken Alsace-Lorraine from France in 1871, so France wanted it back. Next, Germany also lost Eupen-Malmedy to Belgium and North Schleswig, which was transferred to Denmark. In the east of Germany, West Prussia, Posen and parts of Upper Silesia were transferred to Poland to create what was known as the Polish Corridor. This helped recreate the independent state of Poland, but it also split Germany into two. East Prussia, which was a German state, was now separated from Germany by the Polish Corridor. The city of Danzig became a free city administered by the League of Nations. Poland was allowed to use Danzig as a port for trade. This was controversial because Danzig had a largely German population, but Poland needed access to the sea. The Saar was placed under the League of Nations control for 15 years. During this time, the profits from its coal mines went to France. After 15 years, a plebiscite or vote would decide whether the Saar should belong to France, Germany or remain under the League of Nations control. Germany also lost all of her overseas colonies in Africa and the Far East. These colonies became mandates of the League of Nations, which meant they were controlled by other countries on behalf of the League. Overall, the loss of land was damaging because Germany lost population, resources, industry and maybe more importantly pride. The fifth term was the League of Nations. The Treaty of Versailles created the League of Nations, which was an international organisation designed to keep peace after the First World War. Germany had to accept the Covenant or Constitution of the League of Nations. However, Germany was not allowed to join as an original member. This angered many Germans because they were expected to accept the rules of the League, but they were excluded from it at the beginning. The League was meant to prevent future wars by encouraging countries to discuss disputes rather than fight. However, its connection to the Treaty of Versailles made many Germans see it as part of the unfair peace settlement. The final part of GARGLE is extra terms. One important extra term was that the Anschluss was forbidden. Anschluss means union between Germany and Austria. Many Germans and Austrians wanted the two countries to unite, but the Treaty of Versailles banned this. Another important term was linked to the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. This was the treaty Germany had forced on Russia during the First World War. Under the Treaty of Versailles, Brest-Litovsk was cancelled, and Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania were taken away from German influence and set up as independent states. These extra terms mattered because they limited Germany's power and stopped Germany from expanding or strengthening itself after the war. So, to remember the main terms of the Treaty of Versailles, use GARGLE. G is Germany accepted guilt through clause 231. A is Germany's arms and armed forces were restricted. R is Germany had to pay reparations of £6.6 billion. G is Germany lost land in Europe and overseas. L is for the League of Nations was created, but Germany was excluded. And E is for extra terms, which banned the Anschluss and cancelled the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk.